Good morning, Megan. How are you?
Good morning, Vanessa. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. How was your week?
Great week. Yeah, it was awesome. Flew by. I feel like they're going by really fast now. And especially with the nicer weather coming, it's certainly speeding things up.
Yes, it does. It seems like the sunshine we've been having lately, it makes the days fly by, but it's wonderful to see that and feel that warmth of the sun. So,
Yes.
so happy to be back for another week of Coffee with Kalea. And to our listeners and viewers, you know that we love to revisit our previous week and make sure that we've been accountable to our words of the week, for one. And hopefully too, you know, in building flow week after week, we're able to tie in things that we've discussed in our previous episode into the one that we're doing today. So Megan, you had adventure as your word, and like I said last week, I mean, I think of you guys as very adventurous people. So curious to know, were you more adventurous?
Well, so you know what? I feel like the summer started this week. So we had our first week of consecutive warm days. And so it made it a little easier to, you know, get out and make plans. But it also required me to use your word, actually, efficiency, because I needed to get up and get some things done early on in the day to ensure that I was open and available for those adventures. So we also, you know, we set up a tent for the kids this week, which was something our 6-year-old has been asking for a long time. And
like in your yard, or?
Yep. And they came in at 9:30 p.m.
Oh, I love it.
We knew it was going to happen. But
did they fall asleep and then come in, or did
they never fell asleep.
They just played in the tent, and that's cute.
So lots of adventuring, and it's going to be a great summer. So how about you? How was efficiency applied to your life?
Yeah, efficiency. So, you know, I think just as I mentioned last week, I like to think of myself as an efficient person, but sometimes love to jump into tasks without thinking of the steps that it would take to accomplish that. So I've been doing a better job of just saying, these are the 4 steps that will lead me to the completion of this task, whether it was at work or at home. And sometimes that means just combining 2 or skipping a step or adding one. But in any case, when you have efficiency in mind, it was great, because I was just able to feel good about what I was accomplishing. And it's something, again, I'll always be working on.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. That's great.
Yeah. So this week we are continuing with our values conversation, and I just love it because we're able to say, okay, this value is important to us, and what actions are we taking to make sure this value comes alive? So super excited to jump into the value of ambition, because I know that it's one that is super important to us, and it has been a foundation of our growth, you know, both as people and professionals. And can't wait to dig a bit deeper, because it's, you know, something that I think we've cultivated. And I know, certainly knowing you over the last decade, I've seen that, but I also know that we do a really good job of owning our ambition, which is equally as important. And I know we're going to dig a little bit deeper on how to own that ambition over the next half hour or so. So
awesome.
Yeah. So I guess my first question to you would be, how do you describe ambition as a value? Everyone knows what ambition is. But how do you achieve it in your life today?
So I love the concept of ambition, whether it's a value or quality or how we use that in our lives. And I think, first of all, it's really important that we take a moment and recognize that ambition is good. And it's not something that should be viewed in a negative light. And so often it is. Right. And I think, especially speaking from a woman, as a woman and in a female lens, I think we can do a better job at owning our ambition and confidently coming forward to embrace it, because I think we're almost taught to push it
Tame
down.
it down.
Ambition is not a great quality, and it can come out as aggressive or dominant or insert negative connotation here. And so I'm going to remove that in terms of the stigma associated with
I would
being
second
an
that.
ambitious woman. And if you are, as a listener or viewer, are feeling that way, I challenge you to own it right away, because it's so important. And for me, I have been so blessed to experience what it means to have a young daughter who is showing those qualities early on. And all I can think about is I have to help her embrace who she is and build confidence within her. I'm going to get
Love
teary-eyed
it.
because
I am too, and it's not even my daughter. I
but
can
it's
feel
just,
it.
you see those natural gifts. And
Yes.
somewhere along the line,
Mhm.
I think we as a society are told to tame
Yeah.
ourselves and to
Yeah.
keep that
Go
ambition in check.
easy and
And so I'm going to get to the point of your question here in a second, but I just couldn't help myself to go into that experience of making sure that we raise confident young women as well as find ourselves again. And that's been
yes.
the amazing part for me, is that I often ask my parents, was that me when I was a little girl? Because they constantly say she's mini Meghan.
Right.
And I said, so
She
was I like
totally
that?
is.
Was I like that? And it's amazing to see and see, yeah, those were the
So
things.
sweet.
And I know that I've struggled at times to own my ambition, because you want to fit in, or you feel a little bit like an outsider, and that
Right.
maybe that quality isn't so liked or likable.
Mm.
But yeah, finding ways to own it, keep it in who you are, and build confidence amongst one another and lift
Yeah.
each other up.
Right.
And
Right.
so at its core, I would say ambition would be the strong desire for success.
Right.
And
I would agree with that.
I never forget a job interview I did a number of years ago. And the interviewer asked me, what does success mean to you?
That's a good question.
It is. And my response was, success is different for everyone. And there is no definition of success that's the same for you or me. And that's because
Yeah.
we can all measure success differently amongst our own lives. So what you
Right.
might feel your expectations are maybe very different to mine, and you may feel that success differently than I do. And so I
Right.
don't think you can put a single definition of success on the table, but I do think that ambition is cultivated from a desire
For success.
within your life.
Yeah. 100%.
Striving for achievement, wanting to do well, to have more, be more.
Yes. The more is the key. Do more,
Yes.
be more.
Be something
Yes.
beyond the status
Yes.
quo, or if you think about
Continually
it
build yourself. Yeah.
as, maybe using the terms ordinary and extraordinary as a way to compare, is you want to be extraordinary. You
Yeah.
want to do good in the world. You want to make a difference. You want to feel that the actions that you're taking in your life are contributing. So there's a
Yes.
feeling
Making a difference.
associated to this, and a feeling of accomplishment.
And it's hard to describe that feeling. It's very internal. And again, that feeling probably feels different for a lot of people, but
Absolutely.
it's difficult to describe what that feels like. But I also think of it as like a drive, right? It's just
Yeah.
this internal drive.
And you know
You want
what
to
you
improve,
want
and
as well, I think
yes,
is very important.
yes,
So I kind of laugh because I was married at 22 years old, and I'll oftentimes people go, how did you know? Well, I said, well, I met my
right.
husband when I was 19, and by the time I was 22, I knew exactly what
What I
life was going
wanted,
to look like,
right.
and how we were going to get there. So that's a form of ambition as well. So it's
Absolutely.
not necessarily just related to your career or what you do for work. It's, ambition is that desire for more, or knowing what you want in life and
Yes, and
going after it.
feeling very sure about it, and not shaky at all, right? Like that not that you're rigid, and we talked about that last week
Yeah.
with adaptability, but that you're just sure that you've kind of given it thought, and you have that feeling like this is right, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And again, going back to that, I love that concept of owning your ambition. It's not a negative quality. And, you build ideas, you can grow your knowledge, and it helps guide you to reaching your goals. And it's a driving force in your life. So ambition is really a core value, as you mentioned early on in the intro, that you are, right?
Yeah, and it's so well said. And I think, to your point about owning it, I also think we need to recognize it in others and celebrate it. Like,
Yes.
call people out when they're ambitious and applaud them for
Embrace it as a
embrace it.
positive.
Right.
Yeah.
And until we do that, I think you'll see more and more people just kind of hide away and not show their ambition because they don't think it's acceptable or for whatever reason. But yeah, celebrating each other's ambition as a wonderful thing and something we should be proud of.
Absolutely. And I know that, the majority of our listeners are in the female domain, and, so not to discredit our male counterparts in this comment,
There's
but
good-hearted men here too. Yep.
exactly. And those are the ones that are supportive and are lifting women up that are ambitious. So I'll say that those are probably the ones in our arena right now.
Yes.
But to other women, we have to lift each other up. And we've heard it so many times before, or we've encountered it. I know I have personally, I know you probably have too. When we can't make others feel bad for having goals and ambition. And as women, we need to be leaders in that and support each other and lift each other up and not judge or say, how could they choose this over that? Why is there, they should be at home more, or they
Stop
should,
judging.
I'll say right now, I think I'm a pretty good mom, but I also have a very great career, and there is a balance associated with that.
You can have both.
And you can have both. I don't think you can have it all at the same time. And there are compromises that are made. Mm-hmm. But don't think for a second that because someone has a drive in their life for more and to live a great life in their own definition of that they're not showing up other places.
No. So. And I love your example of the marriage, at 22, because it shows the personal side of it, and that ambition can show up there too with your relationships in life. If you're ambitious, then relationships are likely important to you, and you want to make a difference in that area of your life as just as much as you want to hit that big sale at work. Like it's going to show up in all areas of your life naturally.
So true.
Right?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lead into sort of our next topic of conversation, which is going to be, do you think that we can become more ambitious? So if maybe you don't feel that it shows up in your life regularly,
right?
Can we cultivate ambition and become better at it, or make it more of a value? And how might we do that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So absolutely, I think it can be cultivated. I think it's the same as all other values in that sometimes it may not be, we may not be as strong in some areas as others with our values, but if it's important to you, absolutely we can cultivate it. And I think, there's a few ways to do that. I think one would be willing to take more risks. So I think of, stepping into fear, anxieties, all of that. You may feel that ambition inside, but how do you make that apparent on the outside, right? And actually kind of jump in and execute, pull the trigger, whatever that may be. That is risk taking, right? When you may take that first step and not be able to see the full staircase, whatever the unknowns associated with it, but you're just going to jump right in with 2 feet. 2 strong feet.
I think to kind of highlight that fear and anxiety portion of willing to take more risks, fear and anxiety are very real. And when you see people who, maybe on the outset are, perceived confident and are out there and they're pushing themselves, I almost guarantee that if you ask them how it felt the first time, or was it always easy, there's always that sort of that pit of the stomach fear of what might happen. Or
I love that feeling though, don't you? Because it just means that it's like that feeling.
I go back to you and I, 3 months ago, where we're giddily writing texts back and forth saying, do you feel as anxious? How do you feel? And we were both in this excited, but very scared. Like I'd say I was scared. And now it comes easy and it's flowing. And I feel this confidence that's, sort of been nurtured because we were in this together. Right.
Right. Well. But it's also like just to realize that you can have that feeling, still be like super confident, right? That you can embrace
and accepting it.
uncomfortable feeling, yeah, and just accept it as you're going to have all these feels, right? But it's super healthy, and that means you're stretching and growing and
Yeah.
all the good stuff.
It's almost like that really, you need that feeling to know that it's going to feel good at the end, right?
That's
Like
right, that you're
it
doing
contributes to
something.
it. There's emotion wrapped up in it, and something that's emotional often has a good purpose as well.
Oh, so
Yeah.
true. And so do you feel that, another way to cultivate ambition for me, it's, of course, is always about the people. And I think I'm more ambitious when I'm with you, when in your
Mm-hmm.
presence, I feel that. So do you also get that feeling too when you're around ambitious people? Like, do you think that's a way to cultivate that within
Absolutely.
us?
I
Yeah.
absolutely do. I think that it's often said that we're the sum of all of most five people we spend our time with, or the
Yes.
sum of the five people you spend the most time with, to say that more
Yep.
clearly.
Or the average or something
Or
like
the
that.
average.
It's that saying.
But
Yeah.
it's true. Who you're spending that spare time with or your energy with, are they people that you can share your ideas with and they lift you up? Are they people who are going to support you and be positive, and maybe they don't understand it, but they're still positive, right? Like, there
Right.
is this energy that's associated with ambitious people, and it is contagious. I absolutely
It
believe that.
is. Everything
100%.
about it is contagious. Everything about it. So in talking about people, I think another key thing that we should talk about is comparison, right? So
Mm,
tons of quotes out there about not comparing, and every flower blooms at a different rate, whatever it may
yep.
be. But I think that's one thing ambitious people should be very mindful of, right? Because oftentimes you do want to look to see if someone over there is doing it just as well as you. Or
Right.
I think that's something that I've struggled with, and I still do today, is that
Hmm.
comparison. And I know comparison is a thief of joy, and I know all of that, but it's still difficult to
Yes.
not look at the person beside you and compare. I mean,
Yeah.
we do it at work in benchmarking
Yeah.
against other companies, and I think there's some great things about comparison in company performance, but as an individual in your personal professional growth, you have to know that it's yours, and
Right.
it's not going to be helpful to compare.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think comparison can have a negative result if you let it prevent you from moving forward as well. So,
Right.
sometimes that comparison can be that halt that says, well, if I can't get that, right? Like, you start
Mm,
having negative self-talk or things like that. Comparison in a positive way being, does it force you to take action? And I think that that's what you're talking about in
mm,
terms of as a company, if it's driving you to get results, then it can be positive to have benchmarks and move forward. If
sure.
you're comparing yourself to your life, your life versus Susie's life, those are very inhibiting. I think they stop results. I think that when you're striving for comparing your lives, that's when you can come to the conclusion that, well, I'm never going to get there. But if you're using benchmarks, results, and in comparison to move forward, they're two different
Yeah.
arenas in a lot of ways. And I think, again, if you're talking about what can you do to, like, build ambition, and I think taking action is one of those things that you can do.
Mm,
So if that comparison, if you catch yourself comparing, okay, stop, look, evaluate. What are you comparing? And are you actually taking the steps to get there? Right. So,
let it fuel your action. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, one, because I think it's so spot on, but two, one of the things that I've been very intentional about is that I think it's human for us to compare, right?
mhm,
And it's super easy to do so with social media these days. I mean, how could you not compare your life to someone else's when you're bombarded
mhm,
with that stuff, right? But
right.
what I've done recently is I've accepted that it's probably going to happen, but what am I doing about it? Well, I'm actually really using it to help myself be inspired, right? So
Right.
if I see someone, I don't know, do whatever, right, then use it to inspire you, versus kind of get into a hole and say I'm not worthy, or I'm not enough, whatever those things you
Right.
tell yourself that are negative, kind of flip it and make sure that it's inspiring you. If you're going to compare it all, make sure it's inspiring.
Right. And maybe it's important to ensure that what you're including in your comparisons or your inspiration is something that is applicable to your life too. So,
Yeah.
maybe you're not looking, I often come across this in my career. One of the things we have to do right out of the gate is plan a budget.
Mm.
So if you're purchasing a house, I need to know what you can afford.
Yes.
And we're not going to look at $1 million houses
Yeah.
if you're in the $500,000 range. We're
Right.
not going to look at $500,000 houses if your affordability is $250,000. So
Yeah.
managing expectations, but you could easily get lost in going up and up and up and comparing what you want. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're not going to get there, but you have
Right.
to evaluate where you're at right now and make a
Be
plan.
realistic.
And then how are you going to get there? How are you going to get to that point where you maybe having a beautiful home at a certain price is what you
Yeah.
want?
Just
If
because it's
that's
not now doesn't mean it's not
not in
going
the
to be
future.
in 10 years or yeah.
But I think you have to take action to get there. So building backwards, what are the steps to get there? Are you taking action on those items? And it's not going to happen without effort, right? You don't wake
Exactly.
up one day and have all your dreams come true. It doesn't work that way. You have to start. And I think we've
The
all heard,
first step.
stop thinking, start doing. And you don't have to have the full plan in place. You just have to begin somewhere and the rest starts coming, right? Like things start falling in place when you start taking action towards the things you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's love ambition. So, we talked a little bit, kind of talked about a few examples about ambition playing out in your work and in leadership. So any further thoughts on that? How, any stories to share or how maybe you've seen ambition perceived at work or in leadership?
So to circle back, I think, as I mentioned early on when we started chatting, I do think that it's about removing the bad rap that's associated with the term ambition in both, especially the workplace. I think it's easier to have ambition show up in your family life and your personal life, and it's admired a little bit more when it comes to that familial ambition.
Because they love you and they'll always love you.
Right.
Yeah.
You hear that, oh, they're such, so involved or volunteer with the school or, those ambitions are desired. I think that where we get a bad rap is when we start applying ambition to our work life. And when we have to decide where we spend energy outside of our family and maybe dedicate extra time to certain projects or initiatives. And I think that it's important that we remove that and accept ambition is a great quality and it is important for personal growth, but also the growth of those projects and companies. Because you'll see that a lot of the leaders in those positions have ambition as a quality. They want to see things move forward. They want to progress. They look outside the status quo and say, what can we do differently? How can we be better? How can we improve? Right? And so ambition is a value. It's also a quality that shows up in leadership very clearly. And it doesn't mean that you need to have financial ambition either. And I think that I'd like to highlight that ambition isn't necessarily tied to monetary results.
Right.
It's a growth.
Right. So it's not about greed. It's not about, I want to be successful. So, multimillionaire.
Well, that depends on the success that you feel.
Sure. That could be a definition for you, right? That you want that. And that's perfectly okay too. And people are motivated for different reasons as well. Right. But mostly it's not tied to something like that. I think that internal drive is.
Yeah. And I think you probably read a lot of books as well as I have in terms of leadership and things like that. I know
I've done my fair share.
Yeah. But again, I think if financial gains or to feel financially free is one of your goals or feel ambition, when you do the steps to get to where you want to go, those things come naturally. And oftentimes people who have done well or have met their goals will tell you, don't focus on that. That can't be the driving force for you, or you'll arrive at the destination and you won't be fulfilled. If you can focus on what you're doing along the way, I think that second piece comes naturally.
It just comes.
It comes with it. It comes
comes
along. And so, yeah, there's so much wrapped up in ambition that I was just so thrilled we chose this topic, because
it's a great value.
It is. And it's so much of my life wrapped up in, leadership or energy, right?
Yes.
Being positive, or walking out of a room and feeling energized because you spent time with a bunch of successful entrepreneurs or business leaders, and you're going, what is that thing that they pass on?
Right.
It's an energy.
It's energy. And like you said, it's contagious, and we need more of it. The world needs more of it. We need to celebrate when we see it in others, tell them, applaud them for it, pat them on the back, whatever you do, but and celebrate it. And, for me, I think in leadership roles or at work, I've had situations where I've had colleagues tell me that I'm too ambitious, or kind of joke about it in a way that was actually negative, right? That it was like, you're too ambitious, like kind of
tone it down.
Don't ask too many questions in the town hall. I'm like, well, no one else is asking questions, so I'm going to ask a question. Like, it's not because I was doing any of that to look a certain way. It was just, I'm actually curious and I'm ambitious, and yes, I want that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, but for me, what's kept me going is that the leaders in our company and leaders in my life and people, keep me going. Like they'll say, like, this is good. And they'll say that it's positive. And I know it's positive. So it wouldn't stop me anyway. But again, it just comes back to the point, like, we just need more people embracing it.
It is important to also highlight that ambition can show up differently at different times. And it's okay to take a step back. I mean, I wouldn't say
I think you have a good example of that, right? With
well, I don't think
the last few years
ambition goes away, but I think you can pause it a little bit and focus on where your attention is needed. So when I started my family, of course, I took a little bit of a step back in terms of what I wanted to achieve and projects or ideas. And it was important to be present for those formative years and be able to be full in. But I never let it go away. And now they're at an age where I can dedicate more time to those things and show up, both professionally and personally, a little bit more balanced. And
I think you were, but if you look at that, I think, Megan, like, you were an ambitious, or you still are an ambitious mom. Like, the fact that you have raised a daughter, I mean, she's not fully grown, but she's so confident. I just can't wait to see what the future holds for her. But I mean, you needed to be ambitious in that area of your life. And yes, maybe you couldn't have launched that next project or whatever it may be, but you can only be ambitious,
focus
in so many areas at once, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so true. And don't feel bad about that, to embrace it, enjoy it, be present, and accept that that's where you are in life. And it's a lot more rewarding, because I'll tell you, there have been times where you feel, sort of gnarled out a little bit, or your energy is dwindling. But when you stop and start enjoying what you're doing, it just has this domino effect in every area of your life, and it improves your happiness, and you feel more joyful, and you're
more fulfilled.
Yeah, for sure. So this has been an amazing conversation, and I feel like I could talk about the qualities of ambition
all day long.
or how we can lift each other up, and owning your ambition for a long time. But I think we'll leave today's conversation with a few questions like we did last week, and start asking yourself, do you feel like you have ambition?
I also think it's important to ask, can you identify how you're owning your ambition in your life?
Also, do you have someone who knows your ambition or will keep you accountable to that ambitious goal, those ambitious goals that you have?
Yeah. And I also think, we should ask ourselves and reflect on, what do you do when it feels really difficult to be
Mm,
ambitious? Because it's not always um, easy. And
so
sometimes
true.
you just need that little jolt, right? To bring that ambition out.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So we welcome you to discuss these questions in our Kalea community over on Facebook. If you don't want to participate, we encourage you to go and read the conversations that we're having. They're so uplifting and they're thought
They really
provoking.
are.
Oh, I love them. And so it gives you something to think about, something to focus on. And we've really been enjoying them. And I know that our community has as well. This brings us to our words of the week. And so, Vanessa, what is your word of the week?
You know, I think I'm going to choose fun.
Ooh, love
Yeah,
it.
because I've been all these words I've been selecting over the past 8 weeks have been, or 7 weeks, been, they're a little serious. I think I need to incorporate a little bit more fun in
I
my
think
life.
that sounds like a great idea.
There you go. What
Yeah,
about you?
so you have to take some fun adventures. We'll pull from
Oh,
last week and
here
this
you
week.
go. I'll use your word from last week.
Summer is here.
That's right.
Excellent. So I'm going to work on strength. So my
Love
word
it.
is strength, and I think that it can be cultivated in a lot of different ways in your life, and whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, whatever it might be,
Yeah,
and
I love this
just
one.
have a theme of strength. Yeah,
Yes, that's a
showing up with
solid word.
strength. Yeah. Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us this week for our episode with Coffee with Kalea. We would love for you to share Coffee with Kalea with your community. And you can show your support by liking, sharing, and leaving a positive comment on either YouTube or our podcast channels. Remember to subscribe so you get notified when we have a new episode. And we really want to thank you for being here with us today. We always look forward to seeing you the next week.
All right. Have a great day.